So we're now on Daf Chav Daled Amud Beis, and we're trying to figure out Bechar L'may Hilchos. So why did the Torah confuse us by using the word Bechar when the mitzvah of Yibum is not incumbent upon the Bechar, but rather on the Gadol Sheba'achid? And the Gemara answers Ligreusa. It's coming to reduce the Nachla, the Yerusha power or status of the Bechar. Of the Yavam in general. How does the word Bechar reduce the inheritance power of the Yavam? It's counterintuitive. On the contrary, the word Bechar, the concept of Bechar in the context of Nachla, upgrades the rights to a Bechorah. But there's one din in Bechar, as far as Nachla, which restricts, limits, and downplays the status of the Bechar vis-a-vis the Yerusha. And that's called Ein HaBechar Yoresh B'roi Kibemuchsak. What's this all about? So let's imagine the following scenario. Right, Reuven is the son of Yaakov. Reuven's married, and unfortunately, Reuven dies without children. The Yavam, who's Miyabim Eches Reuven, now inherits the estate of Reuven. That's called Yakum al Shem Ach. What happens if subsequent to the death of Reuven, his father Yaakov dies, and the Yerusha goes from father to son, but at the time of the death of Reuven, it was Roi. Let's say, for example, Yaakov inherits his father Yitzchak. Keeps going back. But at this point in time, Yaakov is still alive. So any Yerusha that Yaakov inherits, or any estate he owns or he inherits from his father Yitzchak, any of that is all Roi. Roi means it's something that will in the future come into his possession. Ma b'chor eino notel b'roi kibemuchzak af hai. So to the Yavam who inherits the nechasim of his father, right? Let's say there were three brothers, one of them died, then the Yavam, one of the two surviving brothers, will inherit the portion of Yerusha of the late Reuven that he would have gotten from the father, so that the Yavam now gets 2 out of 3 segments of the Yerusha instead of 1 out of the 3. But that's only b'muchsak, but eino notel b'roi kibemuchsak. That which is roi to come into the father's possession, let's say the grandfather's inheritance, that's called roi. The Yavam has no rights to collect the portion of his late brother in the grandfather's Yerusha, because that's called roi. And now we start the Mishnah on the top of Chav Daled Amud Beis. Haniton al shivcha unishtachara o al avodas kocham v'nisgaira harezel yichnos imkonas emotzi miyad. So there's a rumor going around that a Jewish man was having relations with a shivcha or with a goyeta, and then the shivcha was nishtachara. Her Adon, her master gave her get shichur. She now becomes a full-fledged Jewess, or an Ovedes Kochavim that he was suspect of having a relationship with. Now she went through Gerus. Is a Reza lo yichnos. He's not allowed to marry her after the Gerus or after the shichur, because it sounds like he's benefiting from the znus that he had with her. The marriage is valid. However, if he's suspected of having an adulterous relation with a married woman, votziua mitachas yodo, and therefore Bezdin hotziua mitachas yod shel habal. They broke up the marriage because they suspected this married woman of having an extramarital affair, so she can't live with her husband. If this person who is suspected of being the adulterer went ahead and he married her after the divorce of her husband, Yotzi, we're going to break up the marriage because as far as Tumah, in the case of adultery is concerned, there's Echel Baal and Echel Boet. All right. So the Gemara says, Ha Gioris via Havi, this shiksa, pardon the expression, or this shivcha, was hanging around with a Jewish man, and now all of a sudden she became a Gioris. How could we recognize that Gerus? That's not a sincere Gerus. That's not for the purpose of Judaism to be a Yehudiyah. She's married. She's going through this conversion because she wants to marry him. We're admitting it. We have a principle. Echad Ishan is Gair L'Shem Isha. Echad Isha is Gair L'Shem Ish. V'chein Mishan is Gair L'Shem Shulchan Malachim. These are all cases of someone who had alternative motives for Gerus. For example, Shulchan Malachim means he wants to sit at the table of the king, and for some reason the king, maybe he's a Jewish king, I don't know what. Or L'Shum Avdei Shlomo, right? The Avdei Shlomo were very powerful people. People are afraid of them, so he wants to be part of that group. So he wants to undergo Gerus. In all these cases, Einam Gerim, Divrei Rab Nechemia. Rab Nechemia says this is not a valid Gerus. Show you Rab Nechemia Omer, Echad Geri Arayos. If a person converts because he's afraid of the lions, and this is a parasha Malachim based Perkut Zayin, by Shalach Hashem Ba'emes Arayos. So God sent the Arayos against the enemies, and now they want to be Mizgayer. When the Echad Geri Chalomos, the Bala Chalomos came to him in a dream and told him that he has to be Mizgayer. Echad Geri Mordechai v'Esther. And the Pasuk says, "V'Rabbi me'amei haaretz misyadim ki nafal palach yudim aleim." Again, in all these cases, says Reb Nechemia, there's no sincere motivation for gerus. Einam gerim. These are not valid. The gerus is not valid. That's not Kabbalah Sol Mitzvahs. Actually, geiru bisman hazeh. What does that mean? Gerus bisman hazeh. Bisman hazeh sal kedaitik. Ela ema kibisman hazeh. Now the Jewish people are down. They're not powerful. They're not wealthy. There's no good motivating reason to marry a Jew. So that's not why they're becoming gerim or to get rich or all the other reasons that we mentioned. It must be a sincere gerus. But in our mission, we're talking about a non-sincere gerus for the purpose of issues. We don't paskin like Reb Nechemia. That entire brisa is rejected la halacha. Halach k'divrei omer kulam gerim him. Even if a person converts for a benefit, for a tovas hana, and that's what motivates that person. He stood up in front of a bezdin. He was makabel al atzmo all mitzvos. The gerus is valid. So our Mishnah holds that the gerus is valid even though it was l'shem ishus. The Gemara asks, "Hachi lechatchila nami." So why can't he marry this woman if the gerus is valid? And the Gemara answers, "Mishum de Rav Asi, the Omer Rav Asi, haser mimcha, a pasuk of Mishlei, ikshus peh v'lazus fasayim." A person should do whatever he can to avoid others suspecting him and murmuring about him. And therefore, Lechatchili should marry her, because if he marries her, then Yischazek HaKol, this is going to strengthen the rumor about him that he was having a znus relationship with her. And with this, we'll have to wrap it up for today. I'll try to finish this up later on. In other words, we're afraid that people during Yemos HaMashiach are not really sincere, because Klal Yisrael would be very powerful. Kayotzebo, similarly, lo yikabel gerim lo bimei David. Again, there was a pachad on the goyim at the time of David for lo bimei Shlomo, because maybe his kavana is l'shem shulchan melachim. He wants to be one of the Avdei Shlomo. but not l'shem shamayim. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Mikra, what's the basis in the Torah from which we derive this pasuk that ain't makabling David Limos HaMashiach? Gemara quotes a pasuk in Yeshayahu Hanavi, Hein, Gar, Yagur, Efes, Me'osi, Mi, Gar, Itach, Olayach Yipol. So let's start. Ein Gar, that's a person who's come to be Miskayer. Is Yagur, right? When do we accept him as a ger? Only when it's Efes Me'osi, which means Kaviyachol, God says, I'm not with you. Umi Shegar Itach, it means Biani Yuscha Bisman Hazeh. Right? We're talking about a time period in which the Jews are poor. Alecha Yipol. Yipol means Yanuach. Hu Yanuach Yitchal Yolam Abba. Aval Idach Lo. Idach means Shalobal is Gair Bisman. If it was in this time period when the Jews are downtrodden and poor and destitute, no, he would not be Miskayer. Then we're not going to accept him when he comes to be Miskayer if we suspect that he's doing it for other reasons. And Lo Yizkel Anuach Imam Li Olam Abba. Okay, then. So we're gonna take a break now, and we're up to our Nitan Al Eishes Ish. So Bli Neder will try to finish this up a little bit later on. Thank you so much.